Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be my first impression of the brand new Wayne Goss The Synthetic set. In this video, I will describe each brush as well as the applications for each specific brush. I will have some comparisons with some brushes that I have in my collection as well as existing to the Wayne Goss line, and I'm going to take you through and show you how the brushes perform. I will also include close-ups of all the brushes so that you can take a closer look. Before we get into the video, if you're new to my channel, I'm Yori and I love makeup brushes. So I recently did a review of the new Sonia G Face Pro set, and here we are doing another brush video. If you enjoy the video or find it informative, please don't forget to give it a big like for me. It really helps my channel. And now without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into the video. This collection launched, I believe it was February 2nd. I was able to place a pre-order on Beautylish in advance of the launch since I'm a very frequent Beautylish customer. I paid $140 for the set plus tax, and Beautylish does include free shipping. When the brushes arrive, they come packaged in this canister. This is the Wayne Goss The Synthetic set, and it says it's handcrafted in Kimono, Japan from the softest synthetic hair bristles exclusively on Beautylish. When I unwrap the package, they come typically wrapped in tissue paper, and then each individual brush is packaged in a plastic sleeve, and the ones that require have protectors for the bristles. The first brush in the collection is the 24S Large Fan Brush. This is a fluffy fan brush for applying foundation, highlighter, contour, and bronzer with a seamless finish, and I'm reading this off of the Beautylish website. This kind of brush is new to Wayne Goss's line. He does have a fan brush, but it's more of your traditional, very light fan brush. This one is more reminiscent of the ones that are included in the Sonia G line, and I pulled up a couple of those for size comparison. The larger one is the Sculpt 1 brush, and the smaller of the two is the Sculpt 4. So you can see that the Wayne Goss brush is intermediate in size between these two. Now my brushes are dirty since I use them to create the look that I'm wearing on my face today, but in the close-ups you'll see them in their pristine condition. The next brush in the collection is the pointed powder brush, and this one is numbered 25S. It is a tapered powder brush that applies loose and pressed powders exactly where you want them. So this specific brush, super similar to the Sonia G Inochige brush. I would say that the Wayne Goss one is just a little bit longer in the bristle size, but they're very similar in shape. The brush is extremely soft with just the right amount of bristle density. The next brush in the collection is the 26S, and this is the blending brush. It's an eyeshadow blending brush that doubles as a concealer and precision contour brush. Now, this brush is very similar to your MAC 217 in its shape as well as density. If you want to compare it to something similar to the Wayne Goss line, I found it to be pretty similar in shape and density to the Wayne Goss number 18 brush. Now when you compare the natural hair brush to the synthetic brush, you can see the synthetic brush looks a lot more perfect since the bristles in that specific brush are synthetic. They've been perfected. The other one, when you look at it close up, it looks a little bit frizzy, but I actually have a tendency to prefer that of natural brushes since they pick up powders beautifully. The last brush is the 27S, and this is the pencil brush. It's a finely pointed detail brush for defining, smudging, concealing, and more. For comparison, I did pull out my 05 Wayne Goss brush. This is from the Anniversary Set Volume 2. And the 27S is a lot bigger of a pencil brush. The bristles are longer and it's also a little bit wider. Again, if you compare the hair on each brush, the natural one has more of that frizzy appearance. Now granted, these are the natural hair brushes are brushes that have been in my collection and I've been using, so they are also not new. But I do find that synthetic brushes always sort of retain that perfect appearance. Let's go ahead and get into the demo of my little experiment with my brushes. Wayne Goss did mention that you can create a full face with these brushes, and that's what I set out to do. If you're not interested in seeing the demo of how I created this look using the brushes, then skip ahead to this time and we can go ahead and talk about my final impressions on the brushes. I never film before going to work, but I just got these beauties in the mail and I had to try them right away. I won't get another chance to film again until Monday, so I wanted to take advantage and just dive right in. According to Wayne Goss's video, you can use the 4 brushes to do a full face of makeup, and that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be a very simple full face because, as I mentioned, I'm headed off to work. So I'm going to start by applying my foundation. I did apply my brows already, and I have to admit I did not use any of the brushes in the set. So maybe I'm cheating already. I have my foundation on a dish, and I'm going to apply it to my face with my fingertips first, and then I'll blend it out with the brush. The brush I'm going to use is the 24S. And I guess I'm just gonna swipe. I did apply primer. I used the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer. The brush feels incredibly soft and it is giving me a very natural blend. That's what I like about this foundation. It sinks into the skin and looks like skin. I'm actually enjoying the fan to get around the angles of my, the contours of my face, around my nose. That blended out so quickly. And looking at my brush, it doesn't absorb a lot of the product. I feel like it did blend it into my face. Now as we're going through this, keep in mind this is a very lightweight foundation. So I'm just going to apply a little bit more in the areas where I prefer to have more coverage. And I'm going to go ahead and blend that out. So I'm using a combination of dabbing and buffing motion. I'm kind of dabbing in position and then pulling a little bit. For my concealer, I'm going to go with my old standby, the Urban Decay Naked Skin Concealer. There's no real formal concealer brush in this set. He did say we can use one of the eye brushes for concealer, but I don't think I want to do that today. We'll see. Now since the foundation is light coverage, I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit more concealer than I normally would. Should I use this? The brush he suggested we use is the 26S, but I do want to reserve that for shadow today, so I'm going to try to use this brush. It does blend everything really nicely. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do underneath my eyes. Actually, I should just do it like this because I can prime my eyes a little bit as well with that. The brush is really soft. It's not poking at my eye area, which is so sensitive. So I think it's really nice so far. Never would have thought to use a fan brush like this for concealer, but give yourself the challenge of only using 4 brushes for a full face and never know what you can achieve. I'll be setting that with my Huda Beauty powder, and for the first time I'm going to go into the 25S brush. It picks up a very good amount of powder. I also like that this brush is so fluffy that it's not applying a heavy layer of powder. Now that I've set my under eye, I'm just going to lightly set the rest of my face. And this is the kind of brush that the more pressure you apply, kind of splays out a little bit, so you can use it for a variety of purposes. Alright, so far I like that brush for under eye setting. Not as much as his airbrush, but I do like it. So I'm just going to use a color switch to go between products. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of a contour and bronze because I'm looking a little bit pale. I'm going to use my Tarte Park Avenue Princess palette for this, and I'm going to go into the shade right here for contour, and I am going to use this brush. This is very similar to how I use the Sonia G Inochigwe. She commented my video and tried to tell me how to pronounce it, and I think I know how to get the beginning, Inochi, that's for sure. And then she said that the GUE was like Guerlain, but for some reason it's hard to put that at the end of the word. Inochigwe. Or maybe I'm saying Guerlain wrong, who knows. I was so excited when I saw that she watched my video because, I feel like I got to tell her in person how much I loved her brushes. I feel I'm in desperate need for bronzer, so I'm going to go into the shade right here. It's called Angle, and I am going to use the same brush. It definitely picks up powder. A lot of times synthetic brushes don't pick up a lot of powder, but that was clearly not the case here. Sorry, my dog just came in from his walk, and he gets very excited. I'm going to use the same brush for blush. I'm going into my Anastasia Blush Trio, and I'm going into the first shade, which is called Nectarine. Okay, I think it gave me a good blush application. Next, I'm going to be highlighting, but I don't think I'm going to use this brush. I applied bronzer to it already as well as blush. So I'm going to use the other side of this fan brush that doesn't have as much foundation. So I'm going to go on this side. And the highlighter I'm using today is from MAC. This is the Peach. It's called Powder Blush, but it's really a highlight on me. And I think this was a limited edition item from the Ray Morris collection. And I'm going to apply a little bit of setting spray first, my Pixie Glow Mist. And I'm going to dip right in there. Wow! Why is this always such an exciting step in the makeup routine? And I'm using kind of a patting and swiping motion, very much like I applied the foundation. Oh, that's so pretty. It looks so dewy. It's a little bit thick for the bridge of the nose. I don't think it was the Ray Morris collection now that I think of it. It was a limited edition collection. I'm sure I'm messing that up. If you remember the name of the collection, please put that in the comment section. Alright, so I'm very happy with how the face is looking. Really happy. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a little eyeshadow. I'm going to go into my Violet Voss Berry Burst palette. This is a really pretty palette that has some neutrals and some berries. I want to use this shade because that's the shade I bought the palette for. And so yeah, we're gonna go with that color for sure. So the way that Wayne Goss described is that we should use this very tiny pencil brush. This is the 27S, and that we should apply sort of our crease color kind of thing and then blend it out with the other brush. I'm a little nervous because these colors look very pigmented, and I'm kind of debating on whether I want to use that one or that one. But I want more of a berry look today, so I'm going to go with this one. So the brush is very, very firm, and it definitely picked up the color. So I think I'm going to place this in the crease. Wow. That's a lot of pigment. So I'm pressing so lightly. So lightly. He also mentioned going under the lower lash line with this and just sort of working it upward. Wow, that's so pretty. So I'm going to take the 26S and I'm going to try to blend that a little bit. Oh, that does diffuse the color. Look at that. Before I do the lid, I'm going to do the other eye because I want to apply a shimmer and then I don't want to blend that in the crease. So going back into that berry shade, I'm going to start again on the outside and kind of draw over my crease. And again, I'm going in with a super light hand. And I'm starting on the outside since that's where I want the greatest depth of color. And under the lower lash line. You can see the difference, the one that's blended and the one that isn't. This is a really nice technique. It looks like I'm wearing several colors if I use my typical technique, but I'm only wearing one. Filming this in real time, I have to keep an eye on my camera because it shuts off. It's been 24 minutes and that includes me going around and gathering my tools. You won't see it in the edited version, but it does include me going into my makeup collection to figure out what I'm going to be using and things like that. So I'm actually working super fast considering how much makeup I have on my face. So the brushes are definitely delivering. Alright, I think that's pretty for sort of a transition. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into that peachy pink shade, and I'm going to use this brush on its side now. Seems to pick up well. I'm going to go in with the shade Dry, and then I'll probably put a little bit of Fix Plus. Oh, this is super pretty. I do really like Violet Voss shadows. The Flamingo palette is one of my favorites. Really bright, summery kind of palette. Okay, so that was the application of the shade Completely Dry. Not really having any issues with fallout. That's super pretty, very light. I do want to intensify the shimmer though, so I'm going to apply the shade Wet. I have it on both sides of my brush. And I sprayed it down, so let's see how it applies wet. Very nice. Definitely does intensify. So pretty. 2 eyeshadows I'm wearing on my eyes. I do have a shade I could use on my inner corner, but I want to use this brush. I want to color switch it to make sure that it doesn't put that deep color. That's the nice thing about synthetic brushes. They have a tendency to release the color a lot easier than natural hair brushes. I'm going to go ahead and spray this one. I'm using that light pink shade. I think that's it for the brushes. I did my whole face with 4 brushes. That's pretty impressive. All the brushes performed really well, by the way, if you couldn't tell. And I had no shedding. They were very soft, although I have to say they're not as soft as some natural hair brushes. Some natural hair brushes are a little bit softer, especially those made with squirrel, but they are super, super soft. I'm gonna finish off my makeup and then I will be back to tell you my final thoughts. I will also leave the rest of the makeup that I'm wearing on my face. I'm going to do mascara and lipstick, so I'll leave that in the description box down below in case you're interested in any of the products I applied. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the demo and it was a little bit informative on how the brushes perform. Now let's go ahead and go through the brushes one by one so I can tell you what I think. I was very impressed with these brushes. Now typically I am a fan of natural hair brushes and I'm a big fan of Wayne Goss brushes in particular. My overall thoughts about the brushes is one of the criticisms that he got about this specific brush set was the price. At $140, they are very pricey brushes for synthetic brushes. However, I do have to say that comparing them to my natural hair brushes, every single detail in the manufacturer that is applied to the natural hair brushes is applied to the synthetic brushes. The brushes are equally beautiful, equally well made, and so I kind of start to understand the price point. I do personally believe that synthetic brushes should be priced a little bit lower, but here we're talking about an item that is handmade and handcrafted. A lot of the synthetic brushes that you may be comparing them to are machine made, and so they're not as labor intensive, and that's why they may be able to be sold at a lower price point. Overall, I'm not disappointed. I do find that they are worth the money. However, I do prefer the natural hair brushes. It is just my preference, and you can use undyed goat hair brushes with cream products if you prefer cream products in your makeup application. So me personally, I do prefer the natural hair brushes, but these are beautiful and a welcome addition to my collection. I did use the fan brush to apply foundation and also concealer since I was trying to reserve the other brushes for something else, and it performed very, very well. It's a very soft brush and it blended out my foundation really well. It didn't absorb a lot of product, but it gave me a very even application. I was really surprised even with one of my favorite foundations with how quickly it blended out. I also used it for highlighter and it did a really great job. The next one for the 25S, this is the brush that I used for setting powder. I used it for contour, I used it for bronzer, I used it for blush. So just as it is implied in the description of the brush, it is a really, really great multi-purpose brush, and once you identified your preferred use for it, I think that you could really get a lot of use out of this brush. I liked it for under eye setting. I also liked it for contour. I liked it for blush as well. It was good for all the purposes that I used it. I do prefer a larger bronzer brush, so I probably won't use it in that regard, but a very welcome addition to my collection as well. With the eye brushes is where I was super pleasantly surprised because I not only was trying out the brushes, I was also trying a new technique that he described in his reveal video where you place down the product with a pencil brush. Now typically I use pencil brushes on the inner corner, on the lower lash line, and not necessarily on my lid, but today I did, and wow, it applied the color beautifully. I'm really impressed with how the synthetic bristles on this brush pick up the powder really, really well. And I like the technique, so I learned something new as well. It's not a way I typically do my makeup, but it was really fast and I like the result. For more elaborate looks, of course, that wouldn't necessarily be functional for me, but for something for every day, absolutely. The 26S brush was also really, really nice for blending. You can use it sort of vertically to blow out your crease. You can use it horizontally to intensify color in the crease, and you can also use it to apply color to your lid like a shader brush. So a very multi-purpose brush, and I have to say the 4 brushes did it for me. Overall, beautiful, beautiful brushes. I would love to know what you think if you pick them up. So far I've seen them get very rave reviews, and this one is no different. Of course I do still have to wash them, but I'm familiar with Wayne Goss brushes and they wash and retain their shape beautifully. These being synthetic, I would think that that would be even more so, but I will definitely report back. Now, as I mentioned before, my personal preference is for natural hair brushes, but these are a welcome addition to my Wayne Goss brushes, and I'm so happy to have them in my collection. These are still available in case you're interested. I will leave the link in the description box down below if you'd like to pick them up on Beautylish for yourself. And don't forget that Beautylish does have a 3 payment plan. I paid for these outright because I have my Sonia G brushes on the payment plan, but just the same, it's something nice to take advantage of when you're picking up some of those more pricey items. That's everything for my video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, don't forget, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions that I did not answer, leave those in the comment section for me. I would love to hear your thoughts on the collection and what you think about him adding synthetic brushes to his line. I do believe that these are permanent to his collection, and so far they are only available as a set. If you enjoyed the video and you would like to see more like it, hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel and join me for a future video, which will be very soon. Bye-bye!